Hallo, ich bin hier im Palladium, hier in Köln, und ich freue mich sehr, dass ich hier mit Keane bin, zumindest mit Richard und mit Tim von Keane. Die werden nämlich heute Abend spielen im Palladium und das Ganze wird ja gestreamt, deswegen habt ihr ja hier auch euren Rechner angemacht und ich darf heute Abend auch mit Ihnen sprechen. Welcome, thank you so much for taking some time for me tonight. And my first question, since I'm American, I've got to know how you spent the evening last night and how you, if you went to sleep or did you watch the election? Very important.
Actually, I left my computer on with a news website that refreshes itself automatically. So when I woke up, sort of in the middle of the night, I kept going over to see what the latest was. So yeah, I think it's we're very sort of optimistic about what Barack Obama could bring to the world. You know, if he manages to achieve sort of half of the things he's hoping to do, then I think it'll be the world will be a better place. So you know, it's difficult. He's got to fight the sort of cultural inertia of Washington to sort of get some of these things done. Be nice to see him be against the death penalty. Nice to see him want universal health care. But you know, he's certainly bringing something very new and fresh, which I think we're very excited about.
Were you always politically interested when you were growing up in East Sussex, or did that come while you became famous as a band?
Well, it's interesting. I think I've like a lot of young people growing up, I've found all the sort of British politicians just very boring, basically. And it's not a very engaging. It makes it not a very engaging subject, I suppose. And but what I actually think that music has certainly been a much more present political force in my life than any kind of a sort of drier world of politicians sort of doing interviews and stuff and saying things they don't mean and all that sort of thing. And that the kind of history of political music is something that is really interesting and actually probably has affected just as much change in some ways.
Perfect Symmetry is the name of your album, which is out right now. Is that a political song? If you read the lyrics or hear the lyrics, it could be seen as a political song. Do you think? Change and things not kind of being in the right order anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a song about the world in which we live, and we definitely see a lot of things that are in a sort of cycle of negativity in the world that we live in, and I guess it's an appeal to people's better nature, and it'd be nice to I think that could apply to politicians. It's not party political, and it's not taking sides. I think it's just encouraging. It's sort of appealing to individuals to sort of focus on the good that you could achieve. We feel on the record, that if there's one overriding theme, it's the sort of gap between what humanity is capable of and the reality, which is warfare and poverty, and there's a lot of big challenges ahead of Barack Obama. It's something of a poison chalice, I would imagine, that job. But the song is definitely I think it's more personal than political, to be honest. I was listening to a speech by the historian Howard Zinn, and he was saying that change happens when millions of people do tiny things. So I think, in a way, as Tim was talking about, art sort of affecting us more than say, party politics growing up. I think, music can do that. It can encourage people to just do something, however small. And if enough people do that, then that's, how the world becomes a better place.
Very, very deep. On a lighter note, I love your music, but I must admit, when I heard Crystal Ball the first time, I always thought that you were singing Chris de Burgh. I thought it was a song for Chris de Burgh. Does that happen, and does that annoy you sometimes that, especially people like from different countries, Germany or France or whatever, that they might misunderstand what you're trying to say with your songs? And I'm American, I thought it was Chris de Burgh, but whatever.
Yeah, I think we've only got ourselves to blame there, probably. I remember the first time we ever played in Germany, we played at a club called the Maria in Berlin, and remember Tom announcing the last song and saying, this one's called Bed Shaped, and someone shouted, "Bird shit!" we became familiar with the slight linguistic issues early on, but I find it a little frustrating when people, when you're trying to say something that is really important to you and dare I say, quite profound, and something like Perfect Symmetry actually is a great example of a song that I feel is very kind of sympathetic and positive, and has a very articulate, intelligent message to it that we've put a lot of work into. And you occasionally get people who react to it as being, and just say, oh, it's like an anti-religious song or something like that. And people sometimes have a very kind of badly thought out knee-jerk reaction to songs, that kind of winds me up a little bit, I must admit. But generally, I've got to say, people are so passionate about our songs and our lyrics, and really actually make an effort to find out what they're about, and take an interest in the lyrics, which is cool, because that's what we did when we were kids.
Speaking of passion and reactions, I went on your MySpace page yesterday, and there are almost 4.7 million people who visited your MySpace, which is amazing. Mm-hmm. There are, I don't know how many fan pages, let alone in Germany. I think there are 3, and people just love you. Does that put you on a lot of pressure, or does it make you feel good? Is it a mixture?
It's amazing to have that, that passion and support, and we see it. To be honest, the reflection, the place we see it the most is at gigs. When people just, come out and the last show we played in Oslo, they were just, I don't know, you could just see the passion in people's faces for the music, and so I guess there's a sort of internet-based reflection of that. But yeah, it's just amazing to have that. Weirdly enough, I think it makes us feel we have a certain amount of artistic freedom, and with this record, we definitely tried to push ourselves in a different direction, and I think we feel that our fans are prepared to sort of come with us with that. So actually, it kind of is quite liberating.
Internet is very important for everyone nowadays, not only for musicians. And there was a guy, for example, on your MySpace page who wrote in your guest book that he's a trumpeter and he'd like to work with you. Would that be something that, do you think that could happen nowadays? I mean, 10 years ago, musicians would have said, especially famous bands would have said, no way. But do you think that might be an option? Maybe not with this trumpeter, but with somebody who contacts you online.
I don't know. I guess so. I mean, we've. I think you definitely build up relationships online. One way or the other, whether it's with musicians or we meet musicians all over the world when you play festivals, or people support you, or you bump into each other at the airport or whatever. We're always meeting bands, which is always really nice. And but obviously, everyone's always in different places at different times, so you spend the whole time kind of emailing basically, and you have these friendships that develop entirely over the internet, and collaborations as well, I think, can be done that way. It's you could pretty much make an album over the internet these days. If you wanted to collaborate with a trumpet player, you could just send them a song file and say have some fun with that and send it back. And that freedom is an amazing thing. It's a very positive thing.
How do you use the internet when you use it privately? Do you use email a lot, or MySpace, or do you have a favourite website you like to go visit?
Well, probably some very boring websites about like synthesizers and stuff that no one else in the universe is interested in. But we do a lot of emailing. Like I say, we're away so much on tour that it's great to have that thing of being able to stay in touch by email or whatever, which you wouldn't have been able to do, 20 years ago. And also the whole thing of like, video chatting and stuff like that is, I find a real help with, trying to actually maintain some sort of, that relationship with your family or whatever, and just be able to see each other's faces and have that kind of human interaction, once every few days, and actually, that's really, really important, I think, because otherwise you just spend your life sort of going around the world in this weird little, bubble of being in Keene.
That's true. What about you? Do you have a website you like to visit, or?
Yeah, I use the internet a lot to keep in touch with news, and it's difficult when obviously in a foreign country you can't just pop down to the shops and get your daily newspaper or whatever. So and also with podcasts, I listen to a podcast called Democracy Now! Every day, which is a news show it's based in New York. It's an independent media outlet, and that's really important for me to sort of be able to do that, because you're far from home and you can't just flick on the television. And actually, I think the news you get on the internet is probably better than that you get on the television.
It's a lot more anyway. It's hard to be able to know where you get, if you're getting too much information sometimes, I think it's overwhelming.
You can do, but I guess you just use your brain and
That's
see
true.
what you like and what you react well to. There's websites like Truth Dig and Truth Out and Alternet, and whether just like blogs like the Huffington Post or Salon.com or or The Onion. It's there are so many interesting websites out there that it's amazing actually that side of the world has definitely made touring easier.
Yeah,
it's true of music as well. I think that the fact there is occasionally kind of slightly perplexing amount of choice out there, but I think that can only be a good thing, really. You just have to try a bit harder. It's better to have the options, but you do, that thing of it's I guess those sort of music blogs and stuff are almost like the equivalent of 40 years ago when people talk about going down to the record store and putting on a 7-inch in the listening booth or whatever,
yeah.
And that thing of discovering new bands and new music. Really the best way of doing that now is to pick them up on the internet, and you can pick up all sorts of new music very early and very quickly, and I think that's a great thing.
Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned MySpace, and obviously there are most bands' websites now. You can go and as soon as somebody says, "Oh, have you listened to the new Death Cab for Cutie single?" You go to their MySpace and you can stream it.
Yeah.
And it's totally amazing. And then if you really like it, you can go and download the song. And so it's pretty ridiculously amazing how quickly you can get your hands on music.
Yeah, that's really, really nice, actually. You just said something about the Keane bubble that you kind of end up when you're on tour. What is a typical Keane day when you're on tour and when you're together? Is there a typical day? Is there,
Yeah, well, it depends. It's quite one of the nice things about being on tour is that you do get into a bit of a routine, and you generally, especially we love touring on the bus, which gives you this sort of hub that you will come back to. One of my favourite parts of the day is when you do a gig, and especially if it's a good gig, everyone's sort of, you get a great buzz off that, and then everyone gets on the bus.
And they have some really nice buses. I saw them outside. Yeah,
that's true. We're very, very spoiled. They're great. To just go and hang out after a gig. I love that, and that's a really great time. Sort of driving through the night and just hanging out and watching the world go by. But we tend to. Yeah, I guess it depends really. It's generally a combination of doing gigs and seeing, wandering around cities and seeing new places, and occasionally doing interviews and pretending that we work for a living.
So what does the inside of the Keane bus look like? I'm sure that some people would like to know that.
God, we've got quite a swanky one at the moment. It's all sort of shiny surfaces. I think it's about a year old, so it hasn't been sort of... ruined by too many bands yet. No, it's really plush. It's a bit like a sort of like a business class seat on an aeroplane or something. It's that kind of thing. And then you've got bunks upstairs and a little kitcheny bit where you can make yourself a bit of toast or whatever. And then the best bit there's like a big back lounge where we can watch films, and it's got a huge TV, and it's quite sort of pimp my ride actually. This one is definitely pretty funky. But yeah, so we drove from Oslo to Cologne, which is fucking miles, and basically what did we do? We watched Star Wars obviously, and Borat, and something else. Can't remember what else we watched. And just listen to music. Chat. Tim was up in the front lounge, just kind of working away on some new songs. And yeah, it's pretty cool. It's quite sociable, really. Very civilised way to travel. It's much better than flying. Flying's just, I don't know, stressful. Whereas being on a bus is just like being in your living room, except it's moving.
So who gets to choose which music you listen to and what films you watch? Is there it's obvious that you have to watch Star Wars, but what about Borat? Is that like something that you say, no way, I don't want to see it?
But it's quite good because we've got one of those hard drive, I guess like a TiVo type thing that's just got loads and loads of films on. So like we watched Borat because one of the guys said, I've never seen Borat, is it any good? And you just stick it on, it's wicked. But it's quite, they occasionally have a few bit of a debate over what's going to be the film of the night. Like, it was Back to the Future 3 turned out to be a bit controversial the other night.
Yeah, I don't think you have to watch that film, not necessarily.
No.
But I think we shouldn't get into the film discussion. I just wanted to know who was like the boss on the bus.
The bus.
Well, I'll tell you what. The one thing is that you can never get all the. They have all these different systems wired together. Like you have a PlayStation and a video and a DVD player and a TV and hi-fi, and the only person who can get it all to work is Tom. One of Tom's many hidden talents is that he's the king of like gadgets and remote controls. That is one thing that never changes.
So he gets to decide a lot because he says, I can't fix this right now.
Well, he can also shout a lot louder than everyone else, so it's best not to argue with him generally.
Okay. When you guys got together back then, about 10 years ago, you can say that probably, did you ever expect, not the success, but that you'd be able to last this long together? I know you lost one guy on the way, Dominic, who left the band, but after that, do you think you could stay together this long?
I don't know. I mean, we grew up together, so we played our first gig more than 10 years ago, but we've been making music together for basically our entire lives. So I think music was always going to be a huge part of our lives, to be honest. I think it was probably the first sort of adult thing that we ever sort of connected with or whatever. So it just it instantly became a huge part of all of our lives, and I think it will always be. So so in a way it's not a surprise, because that's it's the one thing that we feel like we actually want to do with our time, and the way we can probably make the biggest contribution to the world in which we live. So I'm definitely pretty chuffed that we're sort of back here and we're touring our third album, and it's difficult for bands to make one record, let alone to get a chance to make a second album and a third one, and because there are so many amazing bands out who don't get that chance. So there's definitely a huge amount of luck involved, and so we've been very, very fortunate in many respects, and actually early on the internet was a huge help for that. Going back to what you were saying, the first fan site, the first website we had, which Tim actually built on his computer, probably while he was at work, supposed to be doing something else. But it was a way that our first few fans started spreading the word, and we definitely benefited hugely in the early days from the sort of early internet.
Speaking of internet, good that you spoke about that again, because I went and posted on one of the fan websites that your fans can ask questions, and Tina75 just wanted to know if it's horrible for you tonight to play in Cologne because it's Guy Fawkes Day and you should be celebrating.
I feel a little bit sad not to be at home for Guy Fawkes Night, because it's pretty special, especially where we grew up, actually down in Sussex. It was a big. Our town was apparently a big centre of gunpowder making back in the day. So they make a really big deal out of it, and it's this weird sort of pagan ritual of lots of people sort of marching around with burning torches and stuff. It's all kind of freaky, but pretty fun. Anyway, so I'm sorry to be missing that, but we love coming to Germany, and it's great being in Cologne. I think this is one of the biggest gigs of the tour, actually, and it's pretty amazing, to have so many fans coming out to see us. So. No, we're really excited about it.
Leon, I wanted to know what do you think is nice about Germans and what you think is weird about Germans? Be honest.
It's interesting because we made the record, predominantly in Berlin, and One of the things we used to enjoy doing was going out. There was a bar called the Schwarz Café in Berlin, which was open 24 hours. And I don't know, late night bars in the UK tend to be quite threatening and intimidating, and sort of full of people in football shirts who want a fight. And whereas this place was just really chilled out and relaxed, and you know, I don't know. Within about 3 days, the staff were bringing us free shots and stuff between drinks, and I don't know. It was just a really welcoming and I don't know, relaxing place to go. And most nights we ended up there after a day in the studio, just sort of sitting there and chatting and enjoying it. And so that's probably one of our favourite parts of Germany, the sort of relaxed, positive vibe.
Well, I'm sure there'll be a positive and relaxed vibe tonight at your concert in the Palladium, and you guys should stay online. Ihr solltet auf jeden Fall online bleiben und euch das Konzert reinziehen. Das wird auf jeden Fall ganz cool werden. Thank you very much for your time and have fun tonight.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot.